So Bones and All is the new film from Luca Guadagnino. And if you liked, if you like when Luca does horror, you'll probably like this film. And I think this film is a great testament to just how great horror films have been in 2022. Just because we've gotten so many different kinds of horror films, and now it feels like we're actually getting like a horror film that could actually make a play for a lot of awards. Just because, yeah, for one, it's Luca. But and you've got some big name talent in this film as well that could be awards worthy. But it's a film all about eating people. Well, more or less, it's definitely, it's a film about, eating people, and it's got some pretty gruesome and violent and bloody scenes. But it's also a very heartfelt road trip movie, if you can believe that. And it surprisingly works for a little bit of its freewheeling nature. It actually hits pretty well. So the story is about Marin, played by Taylor Russell, and she's kind of grown up knowing that she's not like other people. Specifically because apparently since she's been very, very young, she has been eating people. She gets attracted to flesh, and she just starts sinking her teeth into people. And it feels like one of those things that she can't help. That it's just, it's something she can't control, that she's terrified of. She has a father who tries to like protect her and, do the right thing for her. But that means that they have to do a lot of running. They have to leave a community if she gets too carried away. They have to hide dead bodies. And it becomes too much for this dad. This dad realizes he can't do much more for her. And at one point just decides to let her find herself. Just let her go off on her own and try to figure out what to do since she turns 18. Just lets her loose. So Marin decides to, since she never really knew her mother, decides to seek her out and see if she can uncover, the history of why she is a bit of a cannibal. And on her road trip, it turns out to be a very enlightening road trip because she discovers that she's not the only one. There are other people who like to eat people. One of the first people she meets is Sully, played by Mark Rylance. And since Mark Rylance is pretty old, Sully's been doing this a long enough time that he feels like he might have some sagely advice. The problem is, Sully has been at this for so long and has gotten so used to it that he basically doesn't feel much of anything. Like he's just like, okay, well, you gotta eat, hey, I know this house up the street, you want to eat some people with me? It's cool. I know you want to eat, and I've gotten used to it. And Marin quickly realizes that, yeah, I can't. I don't know if I can hang around this Sully guy. I think he's too creepy, especially since he keeps mementos of the people he kills, and I'm not going to reveal which ones, just because the scene where he reveals it is pretty creepy, and it's very early on. So Marin is very much afraid of what she'll become, and can see that within Sully, a guy who's been at this a long time. But on the other hand, she meets Lee, played by Timothy Chalamet, and Lee is fairly close to Marin in age, so and he's gotten a little bit used to it. So Marin feels like, oh, maybe maybe we can connect. Maybe he can show me a little bit of the ropes, and maybe I don't have to be alone. Because here's Lee, another guy who has this craving for human flesh the same way I do. And he's, it feels like he's been on the road long enough. He knows the deal. I'll hang out with him. And then, hey, one thing leads to another, and, you're two cannibals in love, and yeah, and as silly as that sounds, and as ridiculous as this could be, it actually gets pretty sweet. It touches on these two characters who have this fear of themselves where they feel like they want to do the right thing and they don't want to deny this part of themselves, but also try to have trying to find whatever little humanity they have left in themselves, that they can explore to feel like they can still have a life together, which is both it's very charming in a few scenes, but also very tragic, because you kind of realize that this life of eating people and hiding dead bodies is it's going to go to some dark places, and it might not end the way that you like. And without giving too much away, it goes into some pretty dark territory here. There's people they target who they feel like they might have deserved it, and they don't have any kinship, and they end up making big mistakes, and it kind of like haunts them. And I love how like the film is almost kind of like, it's definitely diced up like a road trip film. Like we do have like, you know, little title cards between like each state that they go to. And we do get little flashes of the past. Like Marin slowly starts to remember more of what it was like growing up, and how she was haunted by these memories that she feels like that she was trying to like shut out. And there's a very like darkly sad moment when she finally gets to her mother and kind of realizes that there's not much that she can do. Like there's barely any comfort for her once she finally makes this discovery of like, you know, where she came from and who raised her and how they basically couldn't raise her. So there's all these like these fears that course through both Marin and Lee that become so sad that you find yourself doing what seems like the impossible, which is caring for these cannibals who just want to, you know, feel like they're not alone. Like even with like Sully, for as weird and creepy as he becomes, like he keeps coming back into the picture. Even for as bizarre as he is, you kind of understand how he got to this state by feeling like he has nothing, and that he always had to keep his head low, and that he always had to, you know, keep this part of himself away from other people, and that he couldn't be his real self around others. And like part of me, like I like this allegory for, you know, not being comfortable with yourself, and, you know, like how you act the way that you are. I feel like it might be, and depending on how you view this film and what you might equate it to, I feel like it might have a little bit of like mixed messaging towards the end of the film. At the same time, though, I do like that the film isn't afraid to take some chances and go to some shocking areas that you wouldn't expect this film to go to. Like very, very, very sexual places, very gory places, like and a combination of both. Without giving too much away, there's a climax that's equal parts romantic and sad as it is gory and bloody and vicious. And just having it all swirled together by the end there, it feels so refreshing to have like a film like that that isn't afraid to experiment with that. And I'm so glad that Luca Guadagnino is willing to go through with that, with this type of story, which feels like, you know, in different hands, it feels like this type of film could have been like a young adult romance that was far too simple. That definitely leaned into like the area of Twilight, made it very serviceable to like mainstream audiences. And here it almost kind of feels like it's like, I don't quite want to say like it's challenging, like it has like this kind of like Wim Wenders type feel to it, but kind of like almost kind of like I was thinking a little bit of like kind of like with like Jim Jarmusch's stuff with like Broken Flowers, a little bit on that angle, although like not as much with like the dry humor. There's a wee bit of humor here and there, but not a whole lot. It's mostly just a pretty dark horror film throughout, with great romance thrown in as well. The performances are just like, I mean, come on, you got Timothée Chalamet, you got Mark Rylance, Taylor Russell also knocks us out of the park as well. You even have like some performances from like David Gordon Green and Chloe Shiving who are just amazing in this film as well. Pitch perfect performances there. You really do get to like know and love like Marin and Lee, and they're Taylor and Timothy have a really good chemistry for this type of film. And I feel like that's like the most crucial thing. If this is going to be a romance, you got to feel like these two characters connect. And you feel that through every scene where like they have like their fights over, where they want to go in life, where they have their splits, where they connect sexually, where they feel like they're together and they can trust each other. And just the tiny moments of joy that they take on this road trip here. So yeah, it's definitely like, if in case it needs to be said, this is definitely not a film for the faint of heart. If blood and guts is not your deal, there's a lot of blood and guts here, a lot. So just like be forewarned. But if you're willing to go that route, and if you're a bit of a horror connoisseur and you want you want to feel like there's there's more romance than just like the quirky and silly, like, we kissed each other while we were murdering this dude, that, like, more than that, something that's actually like a meaningful romance. Luca gets the job done here just so well, with amazing performances and a great atmosphere too, and just like great editing as well. Like, there's a lot of sequences where it feels like they could linger and meander too long on like a point, and they don't. They chop it up perfectly here. That there's really a moment where you're not engaged and not interested and intrigued to see where this couple goes next, and who will end up as their next dinner. So it's it's a pretty wonderful film about two people who fall in love and eat people.